You know what's beautiful? Watching people discover exactly what Black folks been warning them about for years. MAGA just turned on their own Indian allies, and suddenly everybody wants to talk about racism. Assalamu alaikum. It's Sista Samilah. And honey, let me tell you something that's unfolding right now that would be almost comical if it were not so predictable. MAGA, that movement that promised to make America great again, has turned its venomous tongue against the very Indians who stood shoulder to shoulder with them. Vivek Ramaswamy, Kash Patel, and even J.D. Vance's wife, Usha Vance, are now catching heat from the same base they thought would embrace them. And where is Black America in all of this? Sitting back, resting, watching the chaos unfold with a knowing look that says, "We told you so." Let me break this down for you with the precision of a surgeon and the spiritual clarity that comes from understanding human nature at its core. What we are witnessing is not new. It is as old as America itself. It is the inevitable result of building political movements on the foundation of racial resentment and white grievance. The heart of MAGA has always been racism, tribalism packaged in red hats, and populist rhetoric. Black Americans saw this from day one. We recognize the patterns because we have been navigating this terrain for 400 years. We tried to sound the alarm. We pointed out the dangerous rhetoric, the dog whistles, the barely concealed bigotry. And what did we get in return? We were told we talked about race too much. We were accused of playing the race card, of being divisive, of making everything about identity politics. Other minority groups, particularly some segments of the Indian American, Asian American, and Latino communities, looked at MAGA and saw opportunity. They saw a chance to align themselves with power, to be considered part of the in-group, to distance themselves from Blackness and proximity to Black struggle. They convinced themselves that if they worked hard enough, assimilated thoroughly enough, and pledged loyalty loudly enough, they would be accepted as equals. They believed the lie that MAGA's anger was only about illegal immigration, only about economic anxiety, only about cultural preservation. They did not understand, or chose not to understand, that movements built on racial hierarchy eventually turn on everyone who does not fit the narrowest definition of belonging. Now let us talk about what is happening specifically. Vivek Ramaswamy, the tech entrepreneur who ran for president spouting MAGA talking points with the fervor of a convert, is facing backlash from the very base he courted. Despite his attempts to out-MAGA the MAGA crowd, despite his attacks on diversity initiatives and his embrace of America First nationalism, he is discovering that his brownness is a problem for a significant portion of that base. Kash Patel, who served in Trump's administration and has been one of the most vocal defenders of the former president, is experiencing similar treatment. And perhaps most tellingly, Usha Vance, the wife of Vice President J.D. Vance, has become a target. Think about that for a moment. The wife of the sitting vice president, a Yale-educated lawyer, a woman who has done everything according to the model minority playbook, is being attacked simply because she is Indian. The comments are vicious, the racism is blatant, and suddenly people are shocked. Suddenly there are think pieces and news segments asking how this could happen, as if the writing was not on the wall in letters 10 feet tall. Black America is not surprised because Black America understands something fundamental about racism in this country. It is not rational, it is not meritocratic, and it is not satisfied with just one target. Racism is a hydra. Cut off one head and two more grow back. Appease it in one direction and it attacks from another. The only people who benefit from systems of racial oppression are those at the very top, and even then their power depends on keeping everyone else fighting for scraps. Here is where the spiritual and psychological dimensions intersect. The Quran teaches us in Surah Al-Hujurat, "O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you." This verse establishes a clear principle. Diversity is by divine design, and the only true hierarchy is based on righteousness, on taqwa, on God consciousness. Any movement, any ideology, any political party that organizes itself around racial superiority or ethnic nationalism is fundamentally opposed to this divine order. MAGA, at its core, violates this principle. It seeks to establish hierarchy based on race, on ethnicity, on proximity to whiteness, and systems built on such foundations are inherently unstable because they require constant policing of boundaries, constant determination of who is in and who is out. From a psychological perspective, what we are seeing is classic in-group, out-group dynamics taken to their logical extreme. Social identity theory tells us that people derive part of their identity from the groups they belong to, and they enhance their self-esteem by favoring their in-group over out-groups. MAGA created a powerful in-group identity centered on a particular vision of American identity, one that is implicitly and often explicitly white, Christian, and culturally conservative. The problem for Indian Americans, Asian Americans, and other minorities who aligned with this movement is that their inclusion was always conditional. It was tolerated as long as it was useful, as long as they could serve as tokens to deflect charges of racism, as long as they amplified the right messages. But the moment that utility diminishes, or the moment the base feels threatened by too much diversity, even among allies, the knives come out. Black Americans tried to explain this. We tried to tell other minority groups that racism is not a straight line, that proximity to whiteness is not protection, that being the good minority only works until it does not. We shared our history, how Black people who owned property were still terrorized, how Black people with education were still denied opportunities, how Black people who served in wars came home to lynching and segregation. We explained that white supremacy is not impressed by your credentials, your wealth, or your political alignment. It sees only your skin and it responds accordingly. But our warnings were dismissed. We were told we were too focused on race, too stuck in the past, too unwilling to move beyond identity politics. And here is the beautiful part, the part that brings me a sense of profound relief and even joy. Black Americans have collectively decided to rest. We have taken a step back from being the primary resistors, the constant educators, the emotional laborers, who spend our energy trying to wake up people who refuse to open their eyes. For too long, Black people have been on the front lines of every social justice movement, fighting not just for ourselves, but for the rights and dignity of all marginalized groups. We marched, we organized, we bled, we died. And while we were doing this work, other groups often sat on the sidelines, or worse, actively opposed us while benefiting from the rights we secured. So now we are resting. We are watching. We are conserving our energy for our own communities, our own families, our own healing. And you know what is happening? Exactly what we predicted. Without Black Americans carrying the moral weight of resistance, without our voices constantly calling out injustice, without our bodies on the line, these other groups are discovering what it feels like to be targets. They are learning what we tried to teach them, that racism does not stop with Black people, that white supremacy is an equal opportunity destroyer, that solidarity is not optional, it is essential. None of this chaos would be happening if Black America were still on the front lines. If we were still expending our energy fighting these battles, we would be absorbing the blows, taking the hits, creating space for others to advance. But we have stepped back, and now the system is revealing its true nature. MAGA is eating its own. The racism that was always there, that was always the engine driving the movement, is now turning against people who thought they had bought immunity through political alignment. From a strategic standpoint, this is a masterclass in what happens when you misunderstand power dynamics. The Indian Americans who aligned with MAGA made a classic error. They confused proximity with power, visibility with protection. They thought that if they were loud enough in their support, harsh enough in their criticism of other minorities, and unwavering enough in their loyalty, they would be granted full membership in the club. But exclusive clubs built on exclusion do not expand their membership. They contract it. The more threatened the core base feels, whether economically, culturally, or politically, the more aggressively they police the boundaries of belonging. This is not to say that all Indian Americans, Asian Americans, or Latinos made this mistake. Many in these communities have been in solidarity with Black folks from the beginning. Many understood the game and refused to play it. Many recognize that liberation is collective or it is not liberation at all. But for those who did align with MAGA, who did attack Black people for playing the race card, who did parrot talking points about how they did not see color and everyone should just work hard and pull themselves up by their bootstraps, this moment is a harsh teacher. And let me be clear about something else. Black America's decision to rest is not apathetic. apathy. It is not giving up. It is strategic preservation. It is recognizing that you cannot save people who do not want to be saved, that you cannot teach people who refuse to learn, and that your energy is precious and should be spent where it will bear fruit. The Quran says in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear. We have borne enough. We have carried enough. We have fought enough battles for people who would not fight for us. So now we rest, we rebuild, we focus inward. And in our rest, we are actually doing these other communities a favor. We are giving them the opportunity to learn firsthand what we have been trying to explain. Experience, after all, is often the most effective teacher. The irony is thick. MAGA sold itself as a meritocracy, a movement where if you held the right values and worked hard, you could succeed regardless of background. But scratch the surface, and it is the same old story. Race matters, ethnicity matters, and the closer you are to the idealized white American archetype, the safer you are. Vivek Ramaswamy can quote the founding fathers all he wants. Kash Patel can defend Trump until he is blue in the face. Usha Vance can be the picture-perfect accomplished professional. None of it matters when the base decides that your brownness is a threat. From a marketing and branding perspective, MAGA is now facing a crisis. They built their brand on the idea of a big tent, a populist movement that welcomed anyone who loved America and rejected political correctness. But the product they are delivering does not match the advertising. The cognitive dissonance is becoming impossible to ignore. And in business, when your product does not match your brand promise, you lose credibility, you lose customers, and eventually you lose viability. MAGA is learning this lesson in real time. Black Americans are watching this unfold with a complex mix of emotions. There is vindication, certainly. There is a sense of, we told you so, that is hard to suppress. But there is also sadness, because this did not have to happen this way. If other minority groups had listened, if they had built genuine solidarity instead of seeking proximity to power, if they had understood that all of our struggles are interconnected, we could have built something beautiful and strong together. Instead, they chose the path of self-interest, and now they are reaping what they sowed. But here's the thing, and this is where my hope lies. Maybe this will be the wake-up call. Maybe experiencing racism firsthand will create the empathy and understanding that our words could not. Maybe Vivek Ramaswamy, Kash Patel, and others who are now targets will finally understand what Black people have been saying all along. Maybe they will recognize that the enemy is not other minorities, not immigrants, not people fighting for justice, but rather the system of white supremacy that seeks to divide us all. Maybe they will learn that true power comes not from aligning with oppressors, but from building coalitions with the oppressed. And if they learn these lessons, if they genuinely shift their understanding and their actions, then Black folks will be here. Not on the front lines fighting their battles for them, but as partners, as allies, as fellow travelers on the road to justice. Because that is who we are. Despite everything, despite the betrayals and the dismissals and the attacks, Black people remain the most forgiving, the most willing to extend grace, the most committed to collective liberation. But we do it on our terms now, not on the terms set by others. The bottom line is this. MAGA has revealed its true nature, and it is exactly what Black America said it was all along. Racism is the heart, the soul, the animating force of that movement. And racism does not discriminate in its destruction. It will come for everyone who is not part of the inner circle, and that inner circle is smaller than most people think. The Indians in MAGA are learning this now. Others will learn it soon. And when they do, when they finally understand what Black folks have been saying, they will have to make a choice, continue seeking acceptance from people who will never fully accept them, or build something new based on genuine solidarity and mutual respect. Black America has made our choice. We are resting, healing, focusing on our own liberation. The rest of the world is welcome to join us, but only if they come correct, only if they acknowledge the work we have done, the prices we have paid, and the truths we have spoken. Until then, we will watch, we will rest, and we will let the chips fall where they may, because sometimes the best teacher is experience, and sometimes the most powerful action is inaction. MAGA is imploding under the weight of its own contradictions. Let it. We tried to warn them. Now they will see for themselves.